Good Lord, y'all already in the chats. Good morning. If Fish and Golf has got first blood, Pit Danny with a noble effort coming in a close, tight second. Good to see you guys. It is Firearms Friday, and for the most part, we're going to do a normal Firearms Friday, but I will take a moment, because it was interesting, to address the debates. All right, and good morning. So, first things first, Sergeant Major wants to know what we're having for dinner, and frankly, I've got no idea, but I would say that I'm kind of leaning toward the Thai thing for lunch, because the last time we tried it, it was excellent, but I was in extremely bad shape, and I definitely could have had a better experience. The food was magnificent. I was just struggling because I'd just gotten out of the hospital and whatnot. And between the back injury and the pneumonia and everything, I've spent a lot of damn time in the house. I'd kind of like to go out to lunch today just to get out of the house. And then as far as what's for dinner, I'm game, whatever. No preferences. Now, the next thing, I know. Okay, so the debate was last night. Now, in a lot of ways, that debate was a big damn deal. Really was. Because it is the only time in history that there has been a televised debate between two men who have actually held the office. Right? It is the only time in history we've had a televised debate between two presidents. Now, with the exception of Donald Trump's run, the exception of Donald Trump and Barack Obama. Let's be fair. Let's be real about it. The debates are always between the president and an experienced politician, right? But this is the first time we've ever had two men who actually have a White House administration track record to run on. And the difference between the two track records could not be more staggeringly clear. As I pointed out yesterday, Trump left the country better than he found it. Biden is not only about to leave the country worse than he found it, much worse, in fact, by the numbers, much worse than all the other presidents who left it worse, with a very few exceptions. He's leaving it much worse than they left it compared to how they found it. It can't, the disaster that has been the Biden presidency cannot be overstated. Something that I'm finding interesting is the refrain on like Twitter, etc. The libs are just jumping up and down about what an awful job the CNN moderators did last night, because they weren't actively fact-checking things. And it's stuff like, Donald Trump said, "I did not have sex with the porn star." And he said that because Joe Biden made the direct, explicit accusation in the course of the debate. And the fact of the matter is on that you have Stormy Daniels, who has made the claim, and she has reversed himself She has reversed herself on that claim several times. She keeps going back and forth. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. It may be the case that we don't know which one is the lie, but we do know that she is a liar. Donald Trump, however, to his credit on this one, and I've said this before, when it first happened, I was all on board for, he probably did it. I mean, there are some factors here that are difficult to ignore, two in particular. But Donald Trump, to his credit, has maintained that he never slept with her, that they never did that. And then another one that's being pounded on is Trump mentioned the Northam plan, where the law would allow for the termination of the child for the killing of the baby after birth if the mother was emotionally, financially, or physically unhealthy enough, or if raising the child would have a negative impact on the mother's physical, emotional, or financial health. And that was in the law, right? That is a law that Virginia attempted to pass with Governor Northam, and that we want to be able to throw the baby out with the bathwater is the official platform of the DNC. And all up and down Twitter, they need to fact check it. Nobody wants to kill the baby after they're born. It's called infanticide, and it's already illegal. It's called murder, and it's already illegal. Okay, slow down, guys. Let me explain you a couple things. A, it's absolutely a thing that one of your people attempted to put into law. That's documented extensively. That is an incontrovertible fact. And two, you're right. Murdering people is already illegal. We don't need to ban abortion. We need to prosecute murderers. We need to prosecute, incarcerate, and execute murderers. That would be people who murder, kill, without good cause, right? There's a distinction between a homicide and a murder. There is. If someone is trying to murder you and you kill them in self-defense, you have just committed a homicide, but not a murder. However, if you're talking about the 98% of abortions that are elective and prophylactic and have nothing to do with the R word, the I word, or the fictional health of the mother, then you are talking about a homicide without justification, which is, by law, murder. The solution is not the banning of abortion. The solution is the prosecution and termination of murderers. That is the correct answer to the question. Murder, bad. Kill the murderer. Oh, but Chris, Batman taught us that if you kill a murderer, that if you kill a killer, the number of killers in the world stays the same. Well, then don't stop. You're right. If you kill one bad guy and killing people, if you kill one killer, the number of killers remains the same. So, yeah, you're right. You've got more work to do. Right? That's why we don't just put, 2 in the heart and 1 in the mind of the suicide bomber downrange. We find his enabler, we find his dealer, we find his mechanic, and we eliminate the cell. And on the question of the abortion issue, you're absolutely right. It is not sufficient to prosecute and execute only one of these murderers. There are too many. It is a big task, but it is one that should be undertaken. because murder. I mean, but let me pull the stat for you real quick. I think I know the number off the top of my head, but I haven't looked at it, thought about it this morning. NPR, Jesus. NPR says there were 1 million abortions performed in 2023. That's a Holocaust. That's insane. Roughly 30 per 1,000 women in the 15 to 44 age range. That's a Holocaust. That's insane. But anyway, so I'll say this and then we're done talking about the debate. Right from the beginning of the debate, Joe Biden walked out on the stage first. He struggled. He was kind of teetering and having a hard time. Sergeant Major says 1 million seems high. Normally the biggest number is 500,000. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But liberal NPR said 1.06 something. But in all fairness, it is also the case that we've just recently overturned Roe v. Wade, and I'm sure that a lot of those abortions were actually protests. That was, I want to kill this baby to show that I don't need no man. I need a man like a fish needs a bicycle because I'm a strong, empowered whammon that gets to vote without signing up for selective service because fuck being an adult. I want my money and my cake and I want to eat it too. But to be a Democrat is to seek harm where it is available. Biden struggled walking onto the stage, barely one foot in front of the other. Joe gets up to the podium and leans hard on it. The kind of the way that you, when you get to a certain age, sometimes you're having a rough day and you're going into the Walmart or the Target or wherever, and you're going in to buy like a pack of pens or a notebook, and that's it. But you grab yourself a cart because, well, you need a walker. That was Joe last night. Trump stomps out on the stage in charge, and as soon as Joe opened his mouth, it sounded like he was already dead. He froze a lot. He mumbled a lot. Trump absolutely eliminated him. And then at the very end, if you didn't hang out and watch for several, I made it a point to hang out and watch for several minutes after it was over, because I expected to see what I did. And what I saw was Donald Trump kind of waved to everybody, turned and walked away, standing up straight with his shoulders back. Biden stood there leaning on the podium until somebody, I think it was Jill, it was hard to tell, the camera angle was a little far back, but he stood there leaning on the podium until somebody came up and held his hand and put her hand on his back and helped him walk very carefully and slowly down the stairs from the podium. Right? Trump walked across the stage and out the back. Biden walked forward, carefully down the stairs from the podium and over to the moderators, where he stood for quite a while having a conversation with the moderators after the debate was over. Sergeant Major asks, do you think he was wearing an earwig? There was one clip that somebody cut and shared on Twitter where it did look like he was messing with something. But Dad, you and I both know, I mean, hearing aids, right? And in all fairness, I would point out that like my dad and I have hearing aids by the same manufacturer, and they both have the Bluetooth connection. We use them to talk on our phone. We use them to listen to a book. They have a function called Live Listen, where you can turn it on, and instead of the microphones on the hearing aids feeding you information, you set your phone down, and the microphone on your cell phone feeds the audio stream back to your hearing aids. And in theory, what it's for, is if you're at a lecture, you're in a lecture hall, you're at a church, you want to listen to the sermon, something like that. You're in a large room with a public speaker, and you're not close. You can, most speakers will be pretty accommodating to the disabled. In this situation, you go and you set your phone down, and now you've got a microphone right there next to them, so you can listen to it through the Bluetooth in your hearing aids. And it would not be difficult for an octogenarian who's in obviously failing health, missing all his teeth, and probably doesn't hear as good as he used to excuse away the use of an earwig in this context as having hearing aids. But I did see him do something where it looked like he was adjusting or fiddling with an uncomfortable piece in his ear. And in fairness, it might have just had an itch. We may never know that one. Here to Lurk says, let's get ready to mumble, and that may be the funniest damn thing I've heard in this context. And that, we're done. We're not going to talk about the debate anymore. It was somewhat. Oh, okay. One last thing. Trump's great one-liner. Biden started going on about being more healthy and more fit than Donald Trump, and saying something about, I bet you can't even carry your own golf bag on the course. I'll meet you out there and show you I can hit a ball, Jack, says Joe Biden. My handicap is 6. And Trump replied by saying, wow, that's the biggest lie we've heard all night. A 6 handicap. And that was the zinger. So, and here to Lurk, man, I know who you are, and I almost outed you, man. I'm working on that. Here to Lurk says we need happy gun stories, and my man, I could not agree more. Let's start with this one. Kenosha, ooh, the home of the original hat trick, of the Democrat hat trick. Kenosha self-defense shooting, resident cleared of charges. Oh shit, son! A Kenosha self-defense shooting will result in no charges to the resident after fatally shooting a burglar in self-defense. The district attorney confirmed the shooting was justified under self-defense laws. A Kenosha apartment resident who shot and killed a burglar in his home will not face charges, according to statements from the Kenosha Police Department at the Kenosha County District Attorney's Office. Ooh, KCDAO, Kadow! That sounds like a word that you would find in a Starburst in a Batman comic, right? Adam West, the Adam West show, yeah. The incident occurred on Friday, June 21st at the Wood Creek Apartments near 15th Street and 30th Avenue. Izarian Cooper, 24, and Deontay Lee, 20, were reported by police to have committed a burglary at the residence, stealing a firearm, among other items. Later, at around 4:25 a.m., Cooper realized, hold up. Okay, it didn't give a time. I was about to say, how long were they in the apartment? Later, at around 4:25 a.m., Cooper realized he had left some of his belongings behind and returned to the apartment to retrieve them. Oh, shit. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. So, y'all. Woo! In those cop procedural shows, where you've got the hot lady cop and the smart nerdy guy that can't fight but he knows everything about some science or bones. Oh dear. Oh, they always tell you, oh, the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. But this, wow. Oh, oh, young Mr. Azarion, you have you have committed an error. To err is human. To get shot in the face for it is your God-given right. Here alert says, dude burglarized a house and what? Laid his phone and keys on the coffee table? You see, I'd pick the lock, they'd break in the front door and drop their car keys in the bowl. Upon Cooper's return, he encountered the tenant, who had come back home. The situation quickly escalated into a physical altercation during which Cooper was armed. In the ensuing struggle, the tenant shot and killed Cooper. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. The Kenosha County District Attorney's Office, after reviewing the evidence and circumstances, determined that the tenant acted within his legal right to self-defense. Consequently, no homicide-related charges will be filed against the resident. Now, let's be clear, like I said just a minute ago, this is a homicide, but it is not a murder, right? We had a situation. It's probably been about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago in Conyers in Rockdale County, when we were still there. And it was right down the street from us, right around the corner, where this truck driver was coming out of his house at like 3 o'clock in the morning, getting ready to get up in his truck and drive, go to work. And like a half a dozen or so, it may have been 8 or 10, it was several young men of indeterminate age, because they were all wearing ski masks, showed up. And if it's been a while, if I remember correctly, they were armed. One of them had a firearm and the rest had like bats and knives, but the homeowner opened fire on them. And I think 2 of them died. He hit another 1 or 2 of them, and apart from the 2 that died right there in the yard, the other ones got away. The very next morning, there was a statement issued by the sheriff that wanted $1.5 million for his that wanted $150,000 for his personal sheriff's truck, and he wanted that separately because the rules on the $1.5 million in the budget that he was supposed to spend on police vehicles had not been, and would not allow him to have the custom truck. Right, that guy, right? Oh, the sheriff whose brother owns the bail bonds that's parked in front of the sheriff's department, reported that this, by the way, Caucasian, this white truck driver who had just shot and killed 2 black men in the course of their involvement with a large group wearing masks, carrying weapons, and attempting to rob him in his driveway on his private property at dark 30 in the morning. With no charges having been filed, no investigation yet having been completed, no due process of law, put out a public statement about the tragedy of the white man murdering the 2 black men in his city. And we were all very quick to point out, hold on a minute. Wait the fuck a minute. You can say he committed homicide, but you cannot say he committed murder. Not intelligently. In fact, in this particular context, what really should have happened is the victim, who was forced to defend himself from criminals as a result of Sheriff Eric Levitt's systemic and continuous failure. He should be suing Sheriff Levitt personally, the sheriff's office individually, and the county government as well for defamation. Right? He's a private citizen, not a public figure. He doesn't even have to make evidence of malice, of willful, malicious defamation. He only has to prove that the statement was, in fact, categorically defamatory. He should eat their fucking lunch over that. I apologize. I should not have spent that much time on that particular tangent, but it's one we haven't talked about in a while, and it irks me. It really does. So, the tenant had come back home. The situation quickly escalated, during which Cooper was armed, and in the ensuing struggle, the tenant shot and killed Cooper. That is a DRT, ladies and gentlemen. Good way to start the morning. Good way to get us moving into the weekend. Yes, sir. So, the Kenosha City Attorney, after reviewing the evidence and circumstances, determined the tenant was within his legal rights. Deontay Lee, who had participated in the initial burglary, was later apprehended by police. Lee faces charges of burglary, using a dangerous weapon, and theft of a firearm. Deontay, young Mr. Lee, is very lucky that he did not return to the scene of the crime with his friend, because his friend died in the armed commission of a felony, which means that Deontay would have been charged with felony murder. He would have been charged, basically, he would have been charged with the other guy's death because it happened in the course of their committing a crime together. Yeah. This says understanding self-defense laws in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's self-defense laws provide individuals the right to protect themselves when faced with an immediate threat of harm. That seems like a no-brainer statement, but in liberal states, and sometimes even in conservative states, you get into liberal counties, and the laws differ some. And it pays to know what the law is where you are. Like, for example, someone merely trespassing is not sufficient. You can't just, oh, hey, there's somebody on my property, let me go and shoot them. Okay, for one, if you don't have it posted and you haven't told the person directly to leave, they are not trespassing by merely being on your property. Now, it's posted, that's different. If you've told them to leave, that's different. But even if it's posted and you've told them to leave, that is not by itself enough, right? Like, oh, well, I've got a sign up that says trespassers will be shot, survivors will be prostituted. Okay, hey, I see a guy in my yard. I'm going to go put 3 in his chest. That's not how that works, right? Get smart on your shit where you are. But this Wisconsin self-defense laws provide individuals the right to protect themselves when faced with an immediate threat of harm. This includes using force, including deadly force, when there is a reasonable belief that such force is necessary to prevent death or great bodily harm. New Jersey, for example, is the opposite of a stand your ground state. They have a duty to flee law, right? So if somebody breaks into your home, you cannot use force to protect your life until they have basically chased you upstairs far enough that either jumping out of the window would be fatal, or there's not a window to jump out of and you're stuck in a corner. But if there's a window with a fire escape, if there's any way that, not that it would, if there's any way that it could have been possible to flee, you don't want to pull that trigger. Incidentally, that means something. And what it means is this: don't live there. Just don't live there. Right? Okay. The Daily Wire, over the last several years, has been doing things like Jeremy's chocolates, Jeremy's razors, stuff like that. And their slogan, their tagline is stop giving your money to woke companies that hate you. Give it to me instead. Right? That Jeremy's razors. They're like, hey, stop. Gillette said men are trash. We hate men because men are toxic and evil and the root of all problems. And Jeremy Boring said, you know what? I'm making razors. Stop giving your money to woke people that hate you. Give it to me instead. I want your money. All right. I mentioned that to say this. And I'm pretty sure I've got a bead on where most of my audience lives as far as who's watching this morning. There are a few that I don't know from past interactions, but I know that the bulk of my audience, you're living in red states, so good for you, rock and roll. But if you happen to be living in a place like New Jersey, New York, California, right, Washington State, I have family in Washington State, and I wish that we could get them out of there and get them down here. There are some factors there, but it's things are in progress. Anyway, Sergeant Major says get back to the DGU. Fish and Golf says he's in Illinois. I'm sorry, brother. One day, get your life better. But if you're living in one of these blue states, the fact is you pay taxes. And that means that you're giving your money to woke people who hate you. So, okay. Get on to another DGU. And hey, guys, I don't have any appointments this morning. I don't have to be anywhere. I've got 6 more stories. And if y'all are into it, we can do them all. Except I might, we can go until I run out of coffee. So we'll see how we go. Cheyenne, fatal shooting. DA says self-defense clears shooter. The Laramie County District Attorney declined to prosecute a man who fatally shot his neighbor's son. Wow. Citing self-defense. I saw something about somebody's son in one of the other headlines, so I might have a duplicate up here. But we'll see what happens. Excuse me. Fatal shooting incident occurred during a domestic dispute on March 30, and the shooter acted to protect himself from an aggressive, intoxicated attacker. Now, okay. This is obviously we're gonna read the story, but I want to say this about it before we read the story. This little quick summary here that mentions how the man shot his neighbor's son, and then it points out that this person who is described as the neighbor's son is an intoxicated attacker. So the it's a little misleading because when it says something about you did XYZ to the neighbor's son, my head's in kid mode, right? It sounds like we're talking about a child, but it looks like that's not going to be the case. So let's see where this takes us. Laramie County District Attorney announced Monday that there will be no prosecution of a man who fatally shot his downstairs neighbor's son in an incident deemed to be self-defense. The shooting occurred on the night of March 30 in the 1700 block of Oxford Drive, Cheyenne. Okay, this is an older story. Usually we don't cover stories this old. I didn't see that date before, though. According to DA Sylvia Hackle, but you know what? I was away for like a month, so let's do it. According to the DA Sylvia Hackle, The incident unfolded after the upstairs neighbor heard a woman screaming from the apartment below. Acting out of concern, he armed himself with a handgun and instructed his wife to call 911 before going downstairs. Hell, I've done that. That's a reasonable and intelligent adult thing to do. Arm yourself and tell the wife to call 911 before you go and handle the business. Sometimes shit just goes that way. Here the lurk says it's Wyoming. Please tell me he used a peacemaker. I don't think it's told us what model of weapon he carried. Unfortunately, the downstairs neighbor, 38-year-old Derek Montoya, was involved in a heated domestic argument with his mother. The confrontation between Montoya and the upstairs neighbor escalated in the hallway outside Montoya's mother's apartment. Montoya initially retreated upstairs but returned shortly after. Hackle recounted that upon Montoya's return, he charged at the neighbor in a rapid and aggressive manner in the stairwell. Although it was unclear whether Montoya was armed, he was heavily intoxicated, adding to the perceived threat. Cheyenne Police Department's investigation supported this account, though further details were not disclosed immediately. Despite the tragic outcome, Hackle emphasized that the situation was unfortunate and underscored the complexities involved. She noted the critical role of Montoya's intoxication and the lack of cooperation from his mother, which complicated the investigation. No other injuries were reported by nearby witnesses. No other injuries were reported by nearby witnesses. That sounds like we've got number 2 on the pipe right there. That's another DRT, ladies and gentlemen, which I am pretty comfortable with. Turning Gun says no CCW required. Georgia is a quote-unquote constitutional carry state, and I won't go into why we don't like the phrase constitutional carry as a legal term. We've discussed that on Firearms Friday several times in the past. But in Georgia, we had the CCW license in play for a while, and I was licensed for CCW. And where we are now is you do not need a permit or a license to carry open or concealed in the state of Georgia. But if you do have one, it takes the place of the background check, because you have had the background check in order to get the license. So if you've got your CCW in Georgia, it makes purchasing a new weapon a much quicker proposition, and very, very in and out. It's actually, I hate to admit it, it's been a while since I bought a gun because I've been socking money away for the property where I can shoot my guns. But the last time I bought a rifle, it was a very easy, just, hey, I want that one. I mean, I did my research. I knew what I was looking for. I went in, I pointed, I'll take that. And they set it on the counter, and they started to pull out the paperwork, and I pulled out my CCW and laid it on the counter, and they said, oh, okay, no problem. And then he filled out a different piece of paperwork, very little at all, and stuck that in the file, and I handed him a wad of cash. It wasn't an expensive rifle. It was like $1,200. This was several years ago, but it was like $1,200. I paid him cash and walked out the door with it. Nice and easy. Okay. So next, Indianapolis home invasion. Relative shot while attempting break-in. Okay. We've heard some horror stories in the past. It wasn't somebody from my unit, but there was a young man who went home on his R&R from his deployment to Afghanistan, and he hadn't told anybody he was going to be there. And this is, keep in mind, this is a story that I heard third hand when I was downrange. So this one might be, a, how do you say? Might be an urban legend, but I've seen the story recounted, and I've seen the story published in newspapers with different names and in different locations. So it's one that has happened more than once in some variation, like the one we're about to read. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be military, soldier home in R&R, but the story that I heard, this was right after I got back to Afghanistan after I took my R&R and came home for Christmas. Young soldier, didn't tell anybody he was coming home. He managed to win the lottery and get his R&R at Christmas time to go home and be with his family for Christmas. Which is a big deal. I mean, getting to go home and spend the time with your family, plus you're only missing the kind of slow part of the war. Christmas time and war is pretty mellow, so you're not skipping the fighting season and missing out on all the fun. So that Christmas R&R is like, I mean, that's the holy grail when you're deployed. But he didn't tell anybody he was coming home. Flew in, took a cab or took an Uber or something home from the airport, and let himself in the back door at his mom and dad's house. And his dad shot him in the dark. He thought, because they didn't know he was coming. Thought it was a burglar breaking into the house. Sergeant Major says, never trust the rumor mill or Jody. And that is, yeah, don't be Jody neither. I don't care if you're enlisted or not. Don't be Jody. Don't be Jody. All right. So this one, and this may be one where the relatives are shithead and needed to die. I don't know, but from that headline, I almost want to tell y'all to go ahead and pull out your tissue boxes. An Indianapolis home invasion forced a family to face off against a family member early Sunday morning. Okay, this already sounds like drugs and domestic abuse is getting involved here, involving gunfire exchange with armed intruders. One suspect, a family member, was wounded during the incident. Indianapolis. At 4 a.m. on Sunday, Daryl Gibbs woke to gunfire outside his home on Denison Street, Indianapolis. 3 masked men tried to break in by kicking his back door, but it held long enough to delay them. His son engaged in a gunfire exchange with the intruders, wounding one. Gibbs found the wounded man in the backyard, who turned out to be his nephew's son, Matthew Kinneard II, 24 years old, couldn't feel his legs and asked Gibbs to call his relatives and 911. Despite the family connection, Gibbs showed no sympathy for Kinneard's actions, emphasizing that such behavior is unacceptable, especially within the family. Gibbs mentioned that the attackers might have been misled into believing there were valuables in his home, which wasn't the case. 2 other intruders escaped through a neighbor's yard. Gibbs' son was questioned and released by the police. Kinneard, previously shot in 2020, oh dear, remained hospitalized as of the article's publication. Okay, no tissues required. This is legitimately a shithead who probably really needed to get shot. Apparently, again, because the first time he got shot just didn't stick. Now, I'll say this for Gibbs. Congratulations, right? Your nephew's son, what is that, third cousin, something? No, not, whatever. Your your familito, young Mr. Kennyard, Gibbs, congratulations, you didn't kill your blood kin. Right? You probably needed shot. You probably did the family at large a considerable service. But, even if, any relative, even if they're screwing up so bad that no reasonable person could say you shouldn't kill them, that's still hard. That's still like, your third cousin twice removed is bitten by a zombie. You've only got one choice, but it doesn't mean that it's an easy choice to make, right? Oh, that's a tough one, guys. But at the same time, I'm not going to shed any tears over young Mr. Kennyard, and my heart goes out to Mr. Gibbs there for having to deal with that and for having to fight through that one. Oh shit! There's a headline for you. That is it. Woo! Where's Mario when you need him? That is a Florida man headline. Jacksonville shooting. Suspect shot in the face in self-defense. I remember seeing that video clip where the guy goes into the gas station and pulls a pistol to try to rob the gas station, and there's like 5 people in there. There's the guy behind the counter, the actual gas station attendant, and it's either 3 or 4 customers. And I think one of the customers was an undercover cop, and the other 3 were just armed good citizens. But dude comes in with a pistol, and you go, "Give me all your money." And literally every person in the building just mag dumps in his ass. And he's like, yeah. Not sure if that one happened in Georgia or Texas, but that's one of those, if you're not in New York, California, Washington, New Jersey, etc., if you're not in just a deep blue state, and I know there are no blue states, only blue cities. Only blue cancers in red states. But if you're not in a if you're in a red state, if you're in a Georgia, Texas, one of those, right? And you decide that what you want to do is fuck around and find out, then I highly recommend that you do it in a store that is empty. That's just, yeah. Hey, Steve, thanks for joining us. He says, Steve says the comment delay is up to 30 seconds. Wow. And I don't think I have it set that way. I think that is just a function of the system. Yeah, I don't have a delay set. So that's just whatever it takes for the internet to get it to me. So, a man was transported to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, all sad, after being shot in the face early Sunday in the Southside Estates neighborhood, as reported by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Okay. This is one of those things that I want to spend some time on now that I'm out in the country and, a little more semi-retired and doing more specific project contracts and fewer bulk contract type of gigs. I need another badge. I need several more badges. I need one for mama bears, right? Need one for, don't mess with daddy type of stuff. And this one, like, you shot the guy and you didn't get the DRT. We have a badge for that, and it's the BRM. You need to go back for basic rifle marksmanship. You need to go back to the range, practice, et cetera, et cetera. But you shot him in the face. I'm sorry, man. That's you shot him in the face. That's solid marksmanship. That's respectable shooting. but he still survived. So, and not just survived, non-life-threatening injuries. I don't know if this criminal needs like a Terminator badge or like a 4-leaf clover Lucky Charm badge, but I can't pin that one on the shooter. I just can't. Right? He shot a shot, good shot, clean shot, face. But I mean, maybe you just need a little more heat in your pocket there, buddy. Police responded to reports of a shooting around 3 a.m. in the parking lot of a strip mall on Atlantic Boulevard near Anniston Road. Upon arrival, they found that the man who had been shot in the face was actually the suspect in a previous shooting incident. Okay, this is Jacksonville, Florida, right? Okay. Woo! According to the initial investigation, the suspect and 3 other individuals were involved in a dispute. Wait, did I just skip over something? No, we're good. The suspect, armed with a shotgun, fired at the group in response. One of the individuals in the group shot the suspect in self-defense. After being shot, the suspect, who was in his 40s, managed to leave the scene in his car. First responders later located him at his home, where he was then transported to the hospital for treatment of his injuries. The police reported that the victims of the shooting are cooperating fully with the ongoing investigation, hoping the suspect shot in the face will think twice next time he's about to go ballistic. Only time will tell. Wow. Wow. Ooh, okay. I don't know that I've got anything to say about that. The shooting happened around 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Here's what I've got to say about that. If y'all watched How I Met Your Mother, it's fun, it's cute, it's amusing. My wife likes to sit down and watch it, and I like to do things with my wife, so we like to watch it every now and then and watch the young single people having bad times in the bar and how much the whole idea of the dating world sucks, and you know they'll have some shit go crazy and wrong because being single and dating in the city is crazy and stupid and expensive. And my wife will look over at me and pat me on the hand and give me the big doe eyes, and she'll say, "Thank you." Because I snatched her up before she was old enough to drink. My hot young wife, we got married in 2007, and hey, she was old enough to drink when we got married, and that was so she never had to deal with that whole dating scene thing. Not really. And she says thank you. And I ain't gonna lie, I have a similar appreciation because I was 26. Yeah, I was 26 when we got married. So I had done a little bit of the dating scene, but those of you who have known me for a long time know that when I was in my early 20s, I kind of worked all the time. But yeah. So anyway, there's a whole episode of that show that is entirely based on the premise that if it's after 2 o'clock in the morning, you just go to bed. You are incapable of making a good decision after 2 o'clock in the morning. If it's after 2 o'clock, you just go to bed. Right? That's about all I can say for these men in this situation here. Yeah. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Steve Rodemeyer says, I bet y'all feel like you were on the last chopper out of Saigon. Yeah. And my boys, if you ain't never been on a chopper flying out of an active war zone, I can tell you something. It does kind of feel like leaving the dating pool behind. Woo! So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. Um, and hey, that's your safety brief. Actually, that's part of your safety brief right there. I mean, you know, the usual. We're going into the weekend. Don't drive drunk. Don't fry bacon naked. And if you are single and out there playing the game, you know, once you find your lane, don't shoot across the line into your buddy's lane. Don't forget your blank firing adapter before you go down there and try to deploy your little soldiers into the hot zone. And you know, watch your lane. Move your selector switch from safe to semi, but make sure you got those little soldiers wrapped up in that APC and ready to rock and roll before you hit that hot zone. And you know, do it sooner rather than later, because you can't make a good decision after 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't have the intellectual capacity remaining for it. You're tired. Go to bed. So, thanks for watching today, guys. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Yes, it is the case that we've been going over by 20 or 30 minutes much more often than we used to, and that is largely a function of I've got more free time to play with. So, if you guys are going to watch a 1 hour show and I'm in a mood to do a 1 hour show, we're going to have a 1 hour show. But that said, we're still going to call it a half-hour show. The promise is, to the best of my ability, technology, God, and weather willing, we're going to be live at 7:30 every morning until 8 o'clock. We're going to do a half hour starting at 7:30. Sit down and have your morning coffee with me. Let's read some news. I'll tell you some jokes. I'll drop a couple F-bombs for your pleasure. And we'll just have us a big old time and it'll work out great. But sometimes shit just needs to be covered, and covered extra. So thanks for sticking it out with me. Looking at the numbers, the majority of you who started watching the show at 7:30 have stuck it out for the whole hour, and I really, really do appreciate that. So y'all be safe out there. Thanks for watching. We love you, and we will see you on Monday.